Okay.
I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
You too. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. It's been a crazy, intense week. I have done 15 interviews so far.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Talked to a lot of women about what's going on in the industry. Learned a lot.
I want to, let's like on the, hopefully we can talk about that sort of thing as well. Like, will this be conversational? Can this not be, let's ask lawyers super complicated questions? Do we need, I mean, we can do that.
What I want to hear is where kind of the overview of what you're seeing is happening with licensing.
Okay.
Where
Okay.
are people having problems with it? What is advice that you can provide? What do you see happening in the future as a result of what's going on right now?
Totally.
Where are people struggling the most in their licenses? What are the bottlenecks?
Oh, perfect.
I'm not
I love that.
asking any legal questions at all. This is really about
Okay.
what's happening with licensing right now.
Yeah, I only just say that because, you know, we get like the packaging and labeling, like super detailed questions about that, or lab testing stuff is just stuff that I don't have memorized yet. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of like, or some that I do, but depending on what it is. So I just, if I needed more like my materials, then I'll get the materials.
No, none of that. I just really want to kind of,
That's so
you know, oh, is that bright? It was perfect on this end.
Okay. Can you move back just a little? He you know, he like does camera stuff.
Oh, I did not know.
Photographer and everything. Oh yeah, so we've got bright camera lights in the house. That's what's happening right now.
Oh, well,
Thank you. You're amazing. I'm a little shiny, but I don't actually own powder. It's like, how not? I'm actually wearing pajama pants right now, okay?
okay.
Oh my gosh. Dude, I was on a panel this morning that I didn't even know I was a panelist. And I was actually wearing my pajamas. I thought it was for California Cars Association. And I thought it was like, I thought I was just calling in. And so I like get on there and then some like, it's like, oh, and then I'm the camera and I'm in my jams and I was like, not good. Okay. How's that?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Joseph, you're amazing.
I think it's a little bit better over here.
Okay.
I know it's bright though.
Yeah, it's bright, but it's okay.
Is he still messing? Yeah.
What do you think is better? Is that better?
No, the way he had it before was better.
Okay.
Are you absolutely insane right now with work?
Yeah, but I felt, just to be very honest, like I have been almost since, I mean, I would say a couple of months after opening my practice and different times have been quieter, but I've always been, it's, you know, it's always been a wonderful flow, like abundant flow of work. Like I've always had that. It's really wonderful.
So awesome. God, if I could do it all over again, I would be a lawyer.
Really?
Oh, yes, but I would be probably a criminal defense attorney or somebody that really like studies constitutional law, that kind of stuff, especially everything that's going on. I've been watching the Peter Strzok testimony this morning. Oh, so much.
Oh, just the light like fell down a little bit.
Yeah. Now you're dark from here down.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. And we're like going on in 1 minute. It's okay. Going on.
So the way this will go is I'm going to introduce you, ask you the question of what we need to know to be the smartest person in the room, get your answer, and then we'll just kind of bounce off of that. And I don't necessarily want to pick your brain for any legal advice, but rather from where you sit in the industry, what you see going on. What do you think these women really need to know? What are they not doing right on their applications? That kind of stuff.
Okay.
Ooh, that lighting is really nice on you. Makes your eyes good.
Okay, so I guess the lighting's getting better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it good where it is, or does she need more?
Do you think it's good where it is, or do I need more?
Nope, I think it's good right there.
Okay, it's good.
All right, ready?
Yep.
Okay. Come on, go live. Keep clicking you. Hello, ladies, and welcome back to today's episode of The Making of the Smartest Person in the Room. We are really excited today. We're going to be talking about licensing, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. This is a really important issue in our industry, and we are fortunate to have Ariel Clark of Clark Newbert. She is an attorney here in California, and probably at the absolute top of her game in this cannabis industry, and we're super fortunate to have her here to share with us what she sees going on when it comes to licensing. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us, Ariel.
Thank you so much for having me, Kara. It's so lovely to see you and so great to be here with everybody.
You have been a guest on our show on Mentor Monday before. You were one of our early guests, so it's really wonderful to have you back. And I am very anxious to hear about what is happening with the state of licensing in California. So let me just begin by asking you, from your expertise, what is it that you feel we need to know to be the smartest person in the room?
Well, I'd like to answer that question kind of twofold. To be the smartest person in the room, when I think about a room full of cannabis operators, entrepreneurs, folks who are interested in getting in the space, whatever it may be, I think kind of really the best way to approach this industry, your business, is to be very open-minded, to receive information, to talk to everyone, to, I guess I'm reacting to the question, which is how to be the smartest person in the room. And the smartest person in the room, I find over my entire career in cannabis, which started in 2005, is really people who kind of have a level of almost humility and are ready to receive information and understand how absolutely enormous this industry is. Cannabis touches all aspects of our lives. And certainly just even from a legal perspective, our firm, we're business and corporate attorneys to the cannabis industry, and we exclusively focus on cannabis. But that means understanding particular water law related issues with the cannabis businesses, depending on where they're at. Or it may touch issues related to packaging and labeling most recently, or lab testing related issues, or employment issues. I mean, the list goes on and on. So given sort of the breadth of information to know, the smartest person in the room would be the person that listens very well, probably has spent the morning reading all about law, politics, their particular business, any sort of market research material, really just is kind of a sponge for information, and really, communicates with all others with that type of curiosity and humility, because this is an incredibly dynamic, emerging industry. There is no possible way for one person to know it all. And the best way to really marshal your business forward and yourself as a person in this industry forward is to really be a receiver of information. So that's kind of my first answer. The second answer, really, I would answer with the smartest person in the room as relates to our specific subject matter today, which is licensing. So in California, and I'm going to really speak to California, although, of course, there are many states that now are even well ahead of California in terms of the cannabis licensing process and program. But in California, a cannabis business would need to have a local permit to get a state license. And so licensing, I think about licensing as kind of a 1,000 step process for a business. There are really 1,000 steps from here to a state license. And those steps involve finding a location that's in the right area, getting a lease, kind of understanding what the local politics are, what is the licensing process, how complicated that process is, what type of entity should you form, are you taking on financing, what kind of tax issues, 280E. I mean, literally I could probably say 1,000 things that gets to the state license. Okay, so the smartest person in the room would have sat down for probably many hours and really looked at each of those steps for your particular business in probably multiple jurisdictions. And that you would be incredibly familiar with all of those steps, the parts in the process that you don't have control over, that are not knowable, but you, instead of just moving forward into a licensing process without everything crystal clear, that's not a wise choice. The wise choice is to take the time to organize, understand, work with professionals who can help you understand what that road will look like, because it's incredibly complicated.
So for a lay person who does not have a law degree, I'm trying to run my business, I'm an entrepreneur. Where's kind of that line of what do I need to know versus, hiring an attorney, hiring a consultant? So can you kind of give me a little bit of, the clients that you've had who've really done well educating themselves without having to go to school and get a law degree and know the laws inside and out? What action have they taken? What things have they been able to learn? And where have they said, okay, here I needed an attorney, here I need a consultant? Because I find that with a lot of women, it's really overwhelming trying to understand all of this, because I have to learn how to run a business and I have to learn all about the cannabis industry. So where is that where you can kind of lean on these professionals that you bring in, and what do you need to know yourself? I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary question, but.
No, I hear that all the time. I have to say, this is an industry, especially now, right? In 5 years, once things are much more regulated and sort of routine, things will be very different for the cannabis entrepreneur. But for better or for worse, right now, and probably for the next couple of years, it's incredibly important to have very strong legal regulatory counsel and business counsel. And, and I really say this, not, this is no bit of kind of promotion of our firm and what we do. In fact, it is a little bit frustrating how incredibly complicated this all is, even for we who are lawyers who do this every day. I mean, this is what our firm, we have 4 offices in California. This is the sole focus of our practice. And there's a lot there. So I strongly recommend that at the front end of getting even, thinking about moving into putting a project together, to sit down with a very capable lawyer who will tell you the truth about what to expect from that process. And I have some clients, we represent all sorts of clients. I mean, we have clients that are huge, very, very well-established non-cannabis companies that have come into this space, very well-established cannabis companies, and folks who are on the other end of the spectrum that are entrepreneurs that have a particular product idea and maybe are not financed at all. And for all of them, as I mentioned before, taking the time to really sort of lay out step by step what it looks like, and just thinking about strategies to do that. How I've seen clients successfully kind of create that for themselves and engage with that more. I mean, this just really comes down to sort of organization and creating a plan, like with everything else in life, and discipline. So it's, okay, here's where I'm trying to go, my end goal. I want to have a commercial cannabis kitchen. I'd like it to be in Southern California. I want to create a certain line of products. I'd also like to be able to work with other brands that make other types of cannabis-related products that can be made in a commercial kitchen. And so that's what I'm kind of looking to do loosely. Myself and my partner, here's where friends and family are going to finance this, right? So you've got kind of these loose ideas. Here's kind of our brand, here's our concept. You write all of that out. And then sit down with an attorney to look at how, kind of pull apart each step in that process. where should we go to cite the business? So there are 540 separate cities and counties. What local jurisdictions would be the most favorable? No, yeah, it's crazy. What local jurisdiction would be the most favorable? With the thought in mind in California that 70% of those cities and counties are still not issuing business licenses, okay? So if I would,
70%.
70%. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very challenging because a lot of businesses have been operating under the collective nonprofit medical only model because in California we passed medical cannabis in '96. Now we're in this year of transition where businesses basically have until, if you've been operating as a medical nonprofit collective, everybody's got to get on the regulated market by January 8th of this coming year, right? So I kind of think about that as like this bridge from the nonprofit collective onto the regulated market. So as part of that bridge, you have to land in a local jurisdiction, so one of 540 in California. You have to land in a local jurisdiction that will give you a license, like a type 6 license, that's what I'm talking about, a manufacturing license, or maybe it would be a type N, depending on what you do. But anyway, a manufacturing license in that jurisdiction, which will then allow you to apply for the state manufacturing license, right? That's kind of one pathway forward. And you could maybe look in Long Beach, the city of Long Beach. You could maybe look in Costa Mesa. You could look at, you'd have kind of a discussion based on that today, essentially, because these rules are always kind of changing. So some jurisdictions open up, some close, some allow certain types of operators, not others, right? So unfortunately, that's a very sort of, even though it's only 30% of local jurisdictions, we're still talking about, kind of a lot of different avenues to analyze. You look at the tax structure in that area, right? You kind of look at, you just kind of pull all of that apart. How much is, like, if we were to look at Long Beach, how much is the property going to cost you? It's $2 to $3 a square foot right now in viable, quote unquote, green zones, right? That being said, the process there has already been very clearly laid out. You're in a jurisdiction that the city loves to work with cannabis businesses. The politics, for a number of reasons that I won't go into here, have been very favorable. There are complications in that jurisdiction like with any other, but there's no cookie cutter pathway if your end goal is to end up with the state manufacturing license. That being said, maybe based on all of that information, the potential operator may say, you know what, I don't have $1.5 million to go through this whole process. So what do I do? Okay, so the state has created a type S license where you can have a shared space type of a facility, which we pushed very hard on a state level. And I personally pushed and lobbied very hard in the city of LA. And a couple of weeks ago, the city we're going to have the inclusion of a type S license, which is basically a shared space facility where multiple, manufacturing brands can share that space. So that's one avenue. The other may be that you work with someone who has a manufacturing license and you have some sort of licensing arrangement, right? So there are different options potentially for that particular type of entrepreneur. And then there are 1,000 other different types of clients we come into contact with, over the course of a number of months who have different types of needs and concerns.
Okay, so you dropped the number 1.5 million.
Okay.
Is that an arbitrary number, or is that like really what it takes for a manufacturer to get through the process?
That could be even on the low end. If it's like a type 7 manufacturing, it could be a couple million. I mean, once you like build out the entire facility, you have to think about this like especially in certain jurisdictions like the city of Los Angeles and most local jurisdictions, we're talking about a very privileged license, okay? So think about it like having a gaming license or an alcohol license or something like that. You are doing a big development project. You have to approach it like a developer who is going to pull all the permits that are needed, meet with the city council members and their staff, talk with the neighborhoods, go through a public hearing process, and you are trying to, you ultimately want to open a business that's heavily regulated in an emerging industry that can take a year, 2 years, 3 years to be operational.
So what do you say to the product maker who is making a salve that she's been making for her friends and family for a long time, maybe sold to several dispensaries, doesn't have a whole lot of money, but wants to keep a little business going? I mean, is all of this put her out of the running? Is it even worth her time and energy to try to pursue building this business?
Well, I think the Type S license is something that is a possibility. And absolutely the third option that I've mentioned, which is, let's say in your scenario, she can have a licensing agreement with someone who owns a manufacturing facility to create her line of products. And so that's what we're seeing a lot of even very well-established and well-known brands, the path that they're taking. They're not owning their own license necessarily, at least not right now, when there's such a small number of local jurisdictions that are issuing licenses, and the cost to get on the regulated market is enormously high. It is problematic. I have to say, as someone who, I've been very involved in the state political process over all of these years, and locally in LA and other places, and I was very supportive for the entirety of my career. I came out of the Bay Area, and now I'm in the LA office, but of a regulated cannabis industry where people have business licenses, where people can operate their businesses safely and without fear of being raided or arrested, where we have products in the market that are safe for consumers, where the community around the non-cannabis community kind of is comfortable with the business that, basically coming out of that green closet, right? And so we've had within the within that state political process, the concern for, and on a level by some lip service paid to the cottage industry, and how much we appreciate that in California, and how much we want to preserve that, and how much we want opportunities for women, people of color, veterans, elders, etc., and that in this state and in this country that is, and in this industry that is of value to us. The process to own your own cannabis business in this state and in almost every jurisdiction would speak otherwise largely. You have to be well financed. You have to have the A team of professionals to help you through this process. Or you need to figure out other ways to get yourself there, which might mean strategic partnerships with other businesses. We have a number of clients that have gone into business with each other, where, for example, there's a warehouse that has 4 separate units that will be built out with 4 separate licenses, and everybody will share security, right? So that saves costs on the security. Everybody, anyway, I could get deep into the weeds on that one, but I really have enjoyed working on that particular project, because then we've got 4 separate companies, a distributor, a delivery service, a manufacturer, and an infusion that's a Type S, and this kind of idea where you've got this sort of almost like a campus, and people are working together, and the people, all these businesses also, the manufacturer can use the distributor, right? And so we're seeing a lot of these strategic partnerships that I think are one of the only things that's sort of saving us. And we're seeing that across the supply chain and across California, a lot of folks needing to work together. But it is not ever, this about me, Kira, I am not, I take my role as a lawyer very seriously, and I am here to tell the truth and what is real, so that people can make a wise decision for their lives and for your business, and not to in any way sort of sugarcoat things. This is not an easy time. This is not an easy industry. That's why I say, please take the time to really understand what you're getting into. Now, I also am a little bit, I rain on people's parade at the beginning of any kind of thing that they may come to me with, because again, I think that's my job. I'm a lawyer. I'm supposed to look at all of the issues, and then let's with all of those issues in mind, depending on different scenarios, then let's figure out what works for you and what's a wise path forward. So that's kind of how I would respond to that question. Should someone who makes a really amazing solve come to see me? Then we would talk about, okay, how do you get there? Because there are people who are able to bring their products into the market, and generally it's by a strategic sort of a partnership and a licensing agreement. And let's talk about how to protect your intellectual property and how you can build your brand. You don't have to own the asset of a building and a cannabis commercial license itself to generate wealth and to create the type of very, a business and reach consumers or patients that you want. There are all sorts of ways to get to where you want to go. And so then, it would be a conversation of how best to do that.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that there was room for that kind of creativity. I thought that the lines were very rigidly drawn. But again, we've had many conversations this week in pursuit of this question of the making of the smartest person in the room. And over again, it comes down to your relationships, which I hear you saying here, because in order to be able to create these kind of scenarios, you've got to have strong relationships with other people and be willing to work together. But on this line, I'm curious, I know that you were one of the founders of the LA Cannabis Task Force. And so you're very involved at a state level on what's going on with our regulations. Is there anything that you're pushing for right now that would allow for more flexibility within these regulations to allow more people to participate?
There is a couple things. I definitely, the shared space facility, all of those detailed rules and regulations need to kind of get up and running. It's all about the local level. So maybe I'll come back to what's going on at a state level. It really is about the gatekeepers to your ability to get that state license. It starts with the locals. It starts with the local jurisdiction. So in the city of Los Angeles, there is a very active social equity program that details of which are being kind of ironed out. That affords more opportunities for folks who are not necessarily extraordinarily in and of themselves capitalized, where you're seeing strategic partnerships for folks who are interested in applying and owning various types of licenses, and the rollout of the Type S facility. I hate to say it, but I can only. It's hard not to think of all of the challenges. I mean, the lack of access to financial services so that people can take out a regular type of a business loan, would be an avenue that if you wanted to open an ice cream shop, you would go to a bank and you take out a loan, and so that makes it challenging, along with kind of all of the other things that make it very challenging. Things that I personally am kind of pushing for so that we can have more businesses can have access to the regulated market. I don't know if that's the type of question that you're asking, but at this point, only a licensed retailer can sell cannabis to a person, right? A person, a patient, or someone over the age of 21. It would be pretty great if there were farmers markets or different types of cannabis related events where growers and manufacturers could, in some sort of limited capacity like that, also be able to sell to directly to the consumers in those sorts of contexts, just to kind of create a little bit more opportunity there to access for people to connect with consumers. It's just kind of the first thing that comes to mind.
Is that something that has to be cleared at the state level first and then on the local? Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting overview. Thank you very much for that. I want to drill down a little bit more into the actual process, because the idea of, I want to open a dispensary, or, I want to start this product. you know, the first hurdle is creating that product or kind of deciding where you want to have that location and what you want your brand strategy to be. But when you have all of that together and you sit down in front of that license, it becomes a completely different prospect. Can you tell me what you're seeing with the clients that you work with and kind of, you know, being in the industry in Southern California, where are people failing at their licenses? And what are some of the misconceptions that you're seeing people have going into the licensing process?
Well, where I'm seeing people fail really, again, comes down to not being incredibly focused on the minutia of every step in the process. I think examples are good. For example, you have a lease on a building, okay? You did not take the time to make sure that the lease has certain provisions that require the property owner to work with you and sign a landlord affidavit or assist with other steps in the local or state regulatory process. So the landlord doesn't want to sign the affidavit when rubber meets the road. That happens. Or in your lease, you don't put in an early termination clause that would allow you to get out of the lease in the event that you aren't permitted or licensed, or things change in any way that would make it impossible for you to run your business, right? I mean, I could go on and on about just the lease issues. So on that one point alone, having a property owner, if you're not going to buy the property yourself, that is 100% on board with your project, and where you've really thought through all of the issues relative to the lease. And I'm sorry to say, but with a lawyer who understands the cannabis specific regulatory piece as well as the commercial lease aspect, and has expertise in both, or two lawyers that are just working on that one lease. That's one step that I've recently seen kind of really go off the rails, and you know, folks needing to apply for their license in a month, having to find new property, and just that's a big challenge. I guess I also would like to, you know, I'd like to give a little bit of a warning to people about relying on city or county websites that have maps of green zones. Don't rely only on the maps that are found online. You need to have a company, like a mapping company, separately analyze that, and probably a lawyer, because people have purchased property in areas that turn out to be not workable because they just relied on the city's maps, or they relied on someone in the planning department who said it was okay. But unless on the phone, and who said that? And that's, you know, so it's in that moment that okay, I've got a location, it's on the map, it's in the green zone, the landlord is willing to rent to me. Instead of moving forward and just running right into it, slow down. Is it really in the right location? Let's make sure we have it analyzed by a company that actually, that's what they do, and look at the ordinance, right? And let's make sure we very carefully understand the lease that we're entering into, and that it has all the needed components for any commercial cannabis lease in California and that particular jurisdiction. I mean, I could go on.
Well, that's why we have you here. You know, I know Simone, who was supposed to be on with us today as a co-host, she has said to me that she's met people who have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars holding on to property that they don't even know if they have the license or not yet.
Yeah, totally.
And a lot of jurisdictions do not have a time frame that they are beholden to tell you. I mean, you know, I know for us in our Santa Monica license, we applied at the end of February, and we still don't know. We have no idea when we're going to know. And I can't imagine if I was supposed to be paying rent on a place for the last 5-6 months. I mean, that would be enough to just take the whole project down.
Well, and this is one of the many, many reasons why the current state of affairs, and everything is impermanent, so things will change at some point in all sorts of ways that we have no idea. But as things stand, it is incredibly difficult to get onto the regulated market, because my answer to, like, my response to that is, yep. And that's the cost of doing business right now in California in most jurisdictions. So accept it, decide if you want to move forward and do that, figure out a way to do that, figure out how to take on partners, financing, or if you are so well capitalized, plan for sort of the worst case scenario. Sorry, but better to do that than to find yourself, this goes back to your question, how people, where do people falter? They don't have enough capital set aside. This is also why always in my first conversations with people, I ask them if they have not already, where's your budget? Like, let me see the numbers. Like, what are you actually thinking about? And where do you get these from? Because, people have very, very sort of inaccurate expectations of what this industry looks like.
That's a really good point about capital. And I'm wondering, where do you advise people if they come to you with numbers that are just like, where did you get this? This has no basis in reality. Where do you encourage them to go to find the correct information so that their operations budget, their financials reflect it's very difficult because we don't have a lot of data to go on, historical data to say, we can prove this out. But there is some area, some realm of reality. Where do you tell people to go to find that information?
Well, unfortunately, like a lot of things in this industry, there's a good bit of just sort of institutional information. So, quite honestly, there are a couple of folks who work for the firm who analyze the numbers and will kind of work gently with clients on kind of getting a little bit more of a realistic, or we'll kind of give our feedback on it. It's really kind of in-house. Here's what we've seen in this area. Let's kind of talk about item by item. Here are some flags. Here, why do you think it's this way? So it's not about I don't know yet of, and maybe you do, I don't know of a resource for that. It's, this is yet one, again, of the either very exciting things or very challenging things of being in emerging industries, that we just, the resources are really, they have not been very well developed, and they're sort of just in the brains and kind of in the work experience of we who've been doing it.
So what I'm getting is you need attorneys, you need consultants. I've worked with consultants, and they're the ones who have advised me based on other work that they've been doing to kind of create a little bit of a body of data that they can draw from, kind of industry standards of what percentage you're kind of writing off and that kind of thing. So let's talk about some positive things. Where are you seeing things go that you have to reach deep in your hat for this one?
Yeah, I know, sorry.
It's okay. Look, we're here to have real conversations about what's really happening. And, the thing that breaks my heart the most is when I see women put everything they have into building a business, and they are underfunded, they haven't made the right moves, and they lose everything. So we want to prevent that from happening, even if that means you've gotten enough education now that you realize it's not the right time for you to jump in, save your savings, save your sanity. But there has to be something that is optimistic, something that's surprising you, something that makes you feel like, okay, it's dark now, but it will get better.
Well, I guess I want to say on the positive end of things, over the years, I've worked with so many people who have come into my office with very little capital, an amazing idea, and an incredible amount of drive. So, it's true that I talk about capital and how complicated it is and everything, but I feel it's very important, and I want to do that. That's kind of my duty. I have seen so many people who have created incredible things over the years. Incredible, because of that vision and drive and kind of creativity, and also accepting the sort of hurdles for what they are and being ready to overcome them. And so that will, there is something so incredible about this industry, this plant, this medicine, this, you know, whatever it is to you, that, I mean, really truly miraculous things. And, or not even so miraculous, just like people who worked every day, figured it out, went to the city council meetings, met this person, went to this networking event, and after 6 months even sometimes, or a couple of years, or, oh my gosh, yesterday I saw a woman who I met like 10 or 11 years ago, who used to work for one of my clients that's a licensed dispensary here in the city of LA. And she was just like a bud tender. And she's sitting across from me in this business deal, and I'm representing, anyway. So, and here's this, like, now she's a little bit older, but here's this woman that I had met years ago, and look where she has kind of come. I mean, it was awesome. So proud, so glad. And so, you know, I see those things happen kind of all of the time. We find it's, again, like with everything, you know, it's with in this life, it's, you know, you kind of keep your, you land your aim somewhere, and you move toward that aim with, you know, with eyes open, and with, you know, a very hard work ethic, and you will get either there or someplace pretty effing amazing. So, I mean, I see people do incredible things all the time. I just, you know, as I said, I just want to make sure that we all move, you know, we don't get caught up in the sort of like this green rush, sort of like, let me check my rationality at the door, and I'm just going to kind of do like, don't do that. Push away sort of the clouds and the confusion, and understand what's real, and then take every bit of that energy and move in that direction.
You're the second person who has given that advice this week. And it's interesting because as somebody who works in an ancillary business, I feel this pressure to sign as many clients. And, you know, I compared it to the big grocery sweeps, you know, where you'd have that giant apron and the gun would go off, and you'd have like 50 seconds to scoop everything up in your apron. I mean, that's how it feels on a regular basis in this industry. So to have somebody say, slow down, you know, it's not a mad race. We're not racing against the clock of these giant corporations coming in and owning everything and taking it all for themselves. There's plenty of time to grow. There's plenty of time to build a business. So that being said, what do you see in California over the next 2 years? I spoke with someone in Oregon yesterday, day before, who said, you've got 36 months of hell ahead of you. I'm telling you based on what happened in Oregon. What do you see over the next 2 years happening in our industry?
It's hard to say on a level, because it will depend on where the laws and regulations sort of fall on a couple of sort of fundamental issues. I will say that when the state essentially took off the canopy cap for cultivation, so that you can stack unlimited 10,000 square foot grows, essentially, we were supposed to have until 2023. California Growers Association filed a lawsuit against basically the state of California, but in particular the CDFA, I think, is named. Anyway, I don't know how that will all work out, but when that happened, that kind of turned things a little bit upside down, in that we now have a small number of businesses owning a huge amount of acreage in California. So for the growers, I mean, because this is, you know, you have to think about it across the supply chain, like who are we talking about and what are you doing? But for growers, it's really, that was a really kind of a turning point. And so for a lot of smaller growers, that's quite challenging. And all that being said, because of the lab testing requirements on cannabis, and a lot of folks not necessarily knowing how to meet all of those requirements, we're seeing very little product on the shelves of licensed dispensaries. And so we're just, it's all kind of, it's a little crazy. I agree with that assessment that, you know, the next couple of years are going to be really wild. So it just, you know, we're going to see further consolidation, I'm sure. You know, there are a lot of Canadian companies that are coming in and looking to purchase, you know, established businesses or folks who are in the process of being licensed. I also understand on a lot of levels why, you know, the need to really try to have, you know, really try to get a bigger footprint right now is smart. I've been trying to think about creative ways, for example, for dispensary clients to pool resources to, you know, basically, you know, when you've got a big, you know, a big MedMen or something like that out there. And also like in LA, like probably 1,000 dispensaries that are illegal dispensaries. So they're not paying taxes. And so the price of the product is super low compared to, you know, so it's just really, really hard out there for a lot of people. So I guess that's kind of what I see is it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of changes. You know, it's why it's, you know, being conscientious about how you're spending your time, how you're spending your money, getting information, all of that, no matter kind of what you're doing is really, really critical.
As an advocate, what are you advocating for that you feel needs to change or be added to the regulations to make it easier for California to succeed?
I think it all comes down to the local jurisdictions largely. And then if I could possibly wave a magic wand and change the canopy, the cap on canopy, I would. If I could also somehow allow growers and manufacturers to be able to sell directly to consumers at, you know, different types of cannabis related events, if we could speed up the process to get cannabis event permits, if we get, you know, there's so, I mean, oh my God, my wish list would be huge. It's really, I mean, largely, you know, it's about people needing a home for their business, and that all comes down to the local jurisdiction. So it's like we have to do a lot of local advocacy work, all of us who are in this industry, to really kind of encourage jurisdictions to issue permits, and not for total and a lottery. Okay, that's just this, no. So anyway, it still remains that local, like access to a local business license is really, that's for me what I see over and over again as the major impediment for businesses right now.
Do you feel like the state is really interested in making sure that we succeed and they are really just kind of stumbling around in the dark right now? Or does it feel like we're pushing against bureaucratic red tape constantly and the state really isn't that interested?
I found the state agencies to be incredibly responsive and wonderful. The state is amazing. I mean, my God, it's like you send an email, you call the CDFA or you call the bureau to ask them various types of questions. If you're confused, I mean, I found the state to be quite amazing. Not all of the state agencies, but the primary three, absolutely. You know, when you're getting to some of these other agencies that aren't specifically tasked to deal with cannabis, it can be a little more challenging, but generally, you know, that's their job. They're regulating, they are to regulate this industry, and it's incredibly important that they're available, and they are, to the industry so that they can answer questions because they're trying to get people licensed. So it's really been the state that's been wonderful. Cities and counties, totally different experience. You know, there's a lack of transparency across the board generally. That's very difficult. But at the same time, even though while, you know, a lot of people are experiencing that type of frustration, usually not every local jurisdiction is like that. Some cities and counties are, you know, very helpful They will answer questions, meet with you. I mean, the County of Santa Barbara is like has been such a gem. I mean, they really they have worked very closely with the industry there. We've worked, we worked with the Business Council, the Cannabis Business Council of Santa Barbara, and we have a lot of clients who are farmers there and other parts of the industry. And the last several years working with the county, different offices and really the Board of Supervisors has been an incredible experience. And they listened to the cannabis industry as well as non-cannabis folks. And so you've got this really wonderful kind of, we're all in it together sort of mentality that is how things get done in a smart way that helps everyone. And yeah, not everyone is happy, but you sit around a round table and you respect and listen, right? But most local jurisdictions are not like that. There is maybe if you're lucky, there's an office that's devoted to cannabis, but the likelihood that there's going to be a lot of transparency coming out of that office, maybe just because they're still developing the rules, maybe they're understaffed, whatever those issues may be. I'm certainly not trying to say it's like lay fault on anyone's feet, but in an ideal world, there would be a lot more communication and cooperation among locals on all of this.
So I'm always been curious about MedMen's strategy because, of course we're not privy to it, but how do they go into jurisdictions where they don't know the locals, they don't know the city council? And have you seen clients that have been able to successfully go into areas that are new to them and win favor? And if so, can you give us any tips on how that might be done? Because I think there are a lot of women who can't possibly open a business in their area and are looking to move somewhere else that they don't know. How do they go about that successfully?
You have to, number one, understand what that licensing process would involve, just sort of like the black letter rules. But beyond that, that it is all about figuring out, as much as you have that licensing strategy, you also have the government affairs strategy. So again, going back to being very well organized and implementing a strategy on a daily basis. When are the city council meetings? Who are the people in the community I need to know and talk to? Do I need to go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings? Do I need to go to these particular neighborhood council meetings? What is the kind of culture in this place? How do I distinguish myself? Creating kind of a little deck, going to the meetings with whomever would be the appropriate people to get buy-in for your project. Again, think about it like a developer. A developer goes in for any kind of project and you have to win everybody in the community to support your project, right? And so that's how you go into other communities. You need to get that type of a buy-in, very likely. Otherwise, you buy a license, and so long as it's transferable and the transfer is done correctly and all of that, then you just buy a license from an established business.
Interesting. Okay, so can you believe we've almost been talking for an hour?
I could talk to you for a long time.
Me too. I could talk to you all day. So let me ask you about the spread of women. How many women are you seeing actually come to you that need help getting licenses, whether it's manufacturing or distribution or dispensary? What is that ratio that you're seeing?
So we are, as you know, a women-owned law firm, and we have all women attorneys except one, and all women staff. So we're a lot of women in our firm, and so for that reason, and because we have been pretty vocal on these types of issues, I think we have a lot more female clients than probably the average cannabis practice. I would say maybe a third of our clients are women or women-owned businesses, which is pretty high.
That is very high.
A third. Probably a third. Are
they getting their licenses?
Yeah. Or you know, we're helping them work through whatever types of issues. I mean, it could even be, I don't want to, yeah, I think I'll safely say a third. Sorry about that. I think I'll safely say a third.
That's great news. You know, I've been talking with several investors. Yesterday was our investor and finance day. And we're kind of trying to pinpoint what that gap is between this awareness that women, when they are funded, they have a faster return on investment, they scale faster, and they're profitable faster. And over here, we have all of these women with businesses who aren't getting funded. So there's this huge gap between that reality and the number of women who really need funding, and the numbers of women who get funded are extremely low. So why? And so it's really great to hear that we have such a large number turning out that are successful in getting their licenses with you. I'm curious though, what do you see from your perspective for the ones that aren't able to find funding, what that area of disconnect is, or where they're falling down?
You know, I think probably the folks you spoke with yesterday could speak to that a little bit better. Like, I'm just kind of thinking about, for example, you know, just actually several, like a handful of young women over the last, really I'm thinking about more about a year and a half ago, when I think there was kind of more interest and more sort of hopefulness amongst just a regular person to like, okay, let me see if I can get this business, you know, started, and a lot of energy around that. And then not ending up, you know, that it kind of not working out. I frankly, I don't know why that, you know, where that disconnect happens. You know, the clients that we have who are women, a lot of them have been in this industry or are very rather successful women outside of this, and, you know, are lawyers themselves or are involved in entertainment and interested in this. And, you know, so kind of pretty established business people or really established cannabis people already. Just very frankly, those kind of tend to be the types of women that we work with.
Makes sense. Okay, so I have a question that Simone sent in that she wanted to ask you.
Okay.
What is the biggest myth in the California cannabis industry?
Oh my God. What's the biggest myth?
Yeah.
You guys, really? Cool. What is the biggest myth in the industry? I mean, I don't know if this is a myth anymore. I think I think there was a myth that it was so easy to get your business, like to run a cannabis business, and you just make an incredibly enormous amount of money, and it was like a slam dunk, as if like the basket was like 3 feet high and you're 6 feet tall. Like, it's so easy, and I'm just going to make a crap load of money from this. And in fact, when you really start to understand what this all involves, and then I'm sure you've talked with folks about 280E and, you know, all of the financial, holy mother of God, and now all the costs of regulations. And I mean, it's not a slam dunk, and it's not, you know, yeah, there are some people who are very financially successful, but a lot, even very successful clients are having, you know, this is a challenging time.
Is it as challenging as you thought it would be, or more so?
Well, that's a really good question, because you see, as I was saying earlier, I was someone who was there saying, let's, like, telling clients, like, support the state medical regulations. You know, we need, you know, AUMA, like, let's have a discussion about it. Let's get all of this regulated. And I knew there were going to be challenges, but no, I did not, there is no possible way that any human mind, maybe some, I don't know, maybe like someone who's been involved in like a very regulated industry and watched something like this, maybe they would have been able to really grasp what we're experiencing, but I certainly did not. No way. And every day I am kind of amazed by the scope of what all of this is. I mean, it's one day in my life as a lawyer in this industry and working with folks, so complicated. It's so crazy. I just, why bullshit? It's incredibly difficult. And we have incredibly, exceptionally brilliant, hardworking, ethical lawyers that work for our firm. We have certain lawyers that specialize in different kind of practice areas in cannabis. We've been doing this a long time, almost all of us, for many, many years. And it is incredibly challenging every day. And it's very science specific. Where are we? What is the issue? Right? And then even then, because it's not like we've done this tons of times before, so that we know where all the stumbling points are, right? And so every day is a lot. It is a lot every day. It's a lot every day for everyone.
So we have women who are not in California. We have a lot of women outside of California and in Canada. And I'm curious for them, one, have we learned good lessons from other states here in California? Are we applying them? And number two, how much would you say California is really a standard to look to emulate introducing your adult use regulations?
Well, California is very unique because basically half of the United States market almost is in our state. So, no, really. I mean, think about it. There are 18 million people in LA area. LA is one of 58 counties in California. I think the population of Colorado is 4 million people. I mean, this is the fifth largest economy in the world. This is very unique. So question one, have we learned things from other states? Did we learn things from other states as we were putting together our rules and regulations? Yeah, we looked to other states, absolutely. But we are also our own state, and we are California with all of our own peculiarities and politics, and also a very thriving cannabis industry for generations. And so, we had to strike a balance between many different things that didn't even involve anything related directly to cannabis, but different kind of stakeholder groups in a political process. And is there something to learn from California in the regulated market? I mean, always we can learn a lot from other states, other countries. It's hard to say because I am frankly so hyper focused on California. I could, to do a good job here, I have to spend every day here looking at these laws, these rules, these specific kind of trends in politics, markets, etc. So, this is where I am hyper focused. I wonder, there's value when you hear how things have rolled out in other states, and certainly a lot of folks who were intimately involved in the policy discussion looked at other states and other countries. And it's really a huge market for people to bring their products to. Everybody, lots of consumers and huge cannabis culture. So, we're sort of, I'm sorry to be so obnoxiously California focused, but I can't help it, I really can't help it.
Well, I hope that we can solve some problems that will make it easier in other smaller states that don't have the history that we do with cannabis. So, okay, we're at exactly 1 hour that we've been talking, and I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I so appreciate you coming and talking with me today, Ariel. This information's been very, very valuable, and I think a lot of the women here have found it valuable as well, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, ladies, today we are continuing our licensing journey, and we are going to talk with Tony Forge of Four Leaf Consulting. She's going to talk about how to work with a consultant. At 3, we have the state of licensing in the industry with Christy Lunsford. She is going to talk to us about a lot of really interesting things. She's been around in the industry for quite a long time, and I'm sure she's got a lot to say. And Jamie Cooper is going to be joining me as my co-host. Then we're going to have Amy Margolis. She's with Margolis Legal, and she's going to be talking about some challenges that she's seen when it comes to licensing. So we're going to try and really get every aspect of this licensing experience, get as much information as we can to help you in that process to be successful. So if you have any questions about licensing that you want to know, you want me to ask any of our guests, please just post them in the group. I will be checking that all day today. And we will see you at 2 o'clock back here in about 30 minutes. All right. Bye-bye, ladies.